Hello, and welcome to the Questionable Album Club, the podcast where usually five middle-aged men discuss not very good albums. This week's record is called God Hates Us All by Slayer, recorded in 2001, came out infamously on the September the 11th, 2001, and was chosen for us by Marcus. So let me just introduce the panel. On the panel today is Marcus Kingwell. Hello, Marcus.
Good evening. Hello.
And thank you for this record. Ross English, our guest again this week. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Ross.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Jesus. Steve Webster. Hello, Steve Webster.
Good evening.
And Steve Gibson. Hello, Steve.
Hello. How are you?
So, Marcus, do you want to tell us why? Actually, can I just this isn't going to work on audio. Who hadn't heard Slayer before this album came out?
Me, Ross.
And me too. Well, I'd heard a couple of tracks, but not properly.
I asked for hands up. Ross, thank you very much for giving me an actual hand there.
But, so, yeah, very little.
And how many of you actually had a Slayer album? Own a Slayer album?
Yeah, I do. I own this very album, but I'd never listened to it.
Oh, yeah. I thought, yeah. Okay. Okay. So, Marcus, why did you do you want to tell us why you chose this record?
Well, that was really part of the reason. Was I had a copy. I was given a copy, and I never got around to playing it. I was so intimidated by the title and the song tracks, which are so incredibly gloomy. I just couldn't think of the right moment to put it on. It's like sort of thinking, there's some serious art house movie which is utterly brilliant but thoroughly depressing. When you ever going to spend a evening watching it? And so it's kind of the same thing with this.
Mark, can I just say, you hear many adjectives applied to Slayer. I've never heard gloomy. It's such a beautifully sweet. Maybe it's a bit gloomy.
Gloomy, okay. Well,
that's brilliant. Carry on.
There'll be plenty more, obtuse comparisons and adjectives coming up in my diatribe today.
in the same way that Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer is a bit gloomy.
That's the one, and it's kind of the same sort of thing. You think, let's watch a movie tonight. Oh, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. I ought to watch it, but I'm not sure I'm really in the frame of mind. So that's kind of the part of the thing. Slayer kept cropping up my newsfeed for reasons I don't really know why. So I got to see various clips of them, and always was impressed with like the opening few bars, and then was like, whoa, I'm just going to go to the next news item because it was so intense. But I like the stage sets and something. I think their look is great. That sort of drew me in as well. So this was an excuse really through Questionable Album Club to give the album a proper listen and to get into it. Also, on generic terms, I would, if someone asked me, I would say yes, I like thrash, but then actually I don't listen to very much of it at all. So he was a band completely missing from my thrash experience, which means it was a bit weak, to be honest, on my part. Here was another chance to dive straight in and listen to it properly and critique it properly. So that's my reasons for coming to the album.
It's a weird because it's their ninth album, and of course their famous album is Rain in Blood from 1986, I believe. Yeah. Arguably the most famous thrash album probably of all time, as far as an actual album, probably as a thing. So did you choose this one because you had it? You just saw it.
Yeah, pretty much. It was there. It was kicking around. Slayer kept sort of, kept popping into my news feed. I'm thinking, I've got to get around to doing this. And so it's, in terms of being a questionable album, I don't really know whether it's their low point or a medium point or whatever. It seems, having a quick look on the sales and stuff, it seems to have done pretty well. So it's as good as an entry point as any. And I also thought it would be divisive in the group, which I thought would make for good entertainment. I'm expecting one or two members of the group to really intensely dislike it and some others to stick up for it. So I thought that's just good for the dynamics of the group, isn't it, to have something a little bit contentious listen to.
Of course. So what did you think, Marcus? What were your first impressions? We'll ask you your first impressions and we'll go to Gibson.
Well, I listened to it from I suppose the question I asked myself was, is this just a moronic din that's written by men in their 40s who can't grow up from being 14 years old, or does it have some kind of artistic merit? What are they trying to achieve with this music, and do they succeed? So I had to sort of, it's a hard listen, isn't it? So I sat down and thinking, yeah, I'm picking some stuff out of this. I'm getting the heaviness and the usual things you get from a good chunky metal album, but it was starting to sort of beat me into submission actually after a few tracks, and I'm thinking I could really do with a slowy in here so I can sort of catch my breath.
Power ballad.
But yeah, power ballad. But as I stuck with it and went through the other side, it's like those jokes that people tell where they repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat, and you go through laughter to embarrassment and then back out to laughter, the sort of Stuart Lee line. It was like that with the music of it was so intense and so relentless. As I came to the second half of the album, I'm going, yeah, I'm really starting to understand this. They're absolutely succeeding on what they're trying to do here. It's meant to be this kind of experience, meant to be kind of difficult and challenging and intense and noisy and dissonant, and they're doing it, but it feels like it's the real thing for me. Crack, I'm almost summing up now for my closing remarks, but these are my openings, so what the hell? It really feels like they're authentic. They're not obviously they're one of the originals, and there are, thousands of death metal, thrash metal, whatever you call them, bands around in the world these days putting out content, of which I listen to various bits and bobs, but it doesn't come close to the authenticity that comes through with this Slayer record. So my first impressions are it absolutely succeeds. It's not necessarily a pleasant experience, but it's a moving one, and I'm pretty impressed.
I like that, Mark.
That's very highbrow, doesn't it? There for
no, I like that. We had lots of context there. I love it. A gloomy Stuart Lee gig.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
So Gibson, you and I have been to see Slayer several times together.
Yes, I go back with them as well. I was a thrasher back in the day, so I think Rain in Blood it always astounds me that when you see usually middle-aged men on a podcast talking about perfect albums, Pet Sounds, whatever comes out, Rain in Blood's never mentioned, because to me that is the perfect heavy metal album on every level. I sort of lost them a bit after I liked South of Heaven, then Seasons of the Abyss, so it's quite nice to hear. I sort of kept an eye on them and not without much interest, and it's very interesting to hear Marcus's reviews as someone who's never heard them and his thoughts on this album, because I thought basically, there's a point of order slightly, and I'm not blaming you, Marcus, at all, but I think we might be in slightly humble pie territory here, because it's not, I don't see it as a particularly questionable album. You've got a rock solid Slayer album that's considered a return to form, and a Grammy nominated single off it. So I don't really see what's questionable about it. What's next? Are we going to have to do Dark Side of the Moon or something?
That's a leap. That's a leap.
But it's like, I see from what you were saying, it's interesting. It's just very interesting to hear someone who's never heard it. But to me, it was nice. It was, it's a nice excuse to hear some Slayer again. But when, I don't know, again, it's a band I've kind of like back in the day. Like to hear what it just sounds a bit like Slayer, really, to me. Still doing what they're doing, but it's nowhere near as good as Rain in Blood or South of Heaven. So that's the context, though, isn't it? If it's a band you've gone back with and grown up with a bit, that's the difference between just diving into something cold. So it's very interesting to hear what you got to say. That's pretty much it, really. Till we go deeper into the album. I can't,
Yeah,
I've got some things.
The song by song, eh? Yeah.
Well, we're not going to do song by song.
No, we're not doing song by
song. But I had to really dig to kind of try and talk about this or find things to talk about that were quite interesting. That hadn't already, that just, but basically, yeah, it's just a bog standard to me.
It's a Slayer album.
Yeah, it's a Slayer album. It's a late 90s, early 2000s Slayer album, but I've not. I like the cover of the one before, Musicus Diabolus, whatever it is. That's more heavy metal. I love that cover. So if this one had that cover, I'll probably be a bit more enthusiastic about it, maybe. But
have you seen the original cover? The original cover they changed it because the super. No. It was a Bible covered in blood with nails in it. They all thought they last minute they put a slipcase over it. If you get the album, it's sort of a cardboard slipcase, which is the white thing.
Yeah,
got the original. It's a classic, sort of like the record company go, oh no, we can't possibly have that.
Oh right, so it's a bit of what's the Beatles one? Didn't the Beatles do that?
That was Yesterday and Today. That was with they were dressed as butchers with loads of butcher dolls. Yeah,
and of course, Smell the Glove.
Well, exactly.
This is smell the blood.
But that's pretty much all I've got to say till we go around again, to be honest.
No, okay, yeah, okay.
It was interesting to hear what other people who haven't heard, you didn't go back with them and whatever. Have got
That's what I'm saying. It's like you sort of there's an assumption with people who grew up with rock music, heavy metal music, that they've got an opinion on Slayer. But actually, in this little room here, it's actually really interesting hearing people sing. Yeah. So, Ross, we'll come to you next. You put your hand up, I believe, as someone who hadn't heard Slayer before. So would you say this? I've actually written this down especially for you. Would you say this is dark MAGA energy?
I think it's probably the darkest of all the MAGA energies. I'm completely cold on. I mean, in terms of knowledge on this, I don't know metal. I had a brief dip of the toe in the mid to late 80s when all my friends were into metal. I subscribed to Kerrang for a couple of months. I bought a Iron Maiden album and a Striper album, which is funny.
Hang on.
That'll do it.
Hang on. You bought a Striper album?
Yes, I think it was the Yellow and Black Attack, I think.
The hell with the devil.
Yes.
So, Black Attack's an EP.
Oh, is it? Oh, right. Well,
it just felt like an album.
Why did you buy a Striper album?
I was both going through a sort of dipping my toe in metal and Christianity at the same time.
We've done a 180 here, haven't we? We've done a 180 here on this one already. So,
and I went to see FM play and Def Leppard, and then I sort of forgot about it and moved on until about 6 years ago when my son had a brief metal moment, and I went to a all-day metal tribute act festival in Wolverhampton, where Slipknot were on the bill, if I recall. And so that's my entire metal knowledge.
What was the venue? What was the venue in Wolverhampton, Ross?
It was a big park. I can't remember.
It wasn't the Steam Mill. I was just checking it. Wasn't.
Can't remember.
Yeah, Ross, were you serious about you were going through a simultaneous Christian and metal phase? That was You actually were. So you were trying to kind of and what happened when you? What was your spiritual response to Striper?
Well, it all looked a bit ridiculous. If I remember, there was
before you bought it. You could go into the record shop and say, "Oh, this looks a bit."
Yeah, but I mean, I can't remember what year was that. 87, 88, maybe was it? I don't know. You do all sorts of things back then, don't you?
What Maiden album was it?
Live After Death.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So can I just interject here, Ross? I mean, I'm very impressed because you said you dipped your toe in.
Yeah.
Dipping the toe involved a classic live metal album in Live After Death, a Kerrang subscription, going to spending your hard-earned money on some proper hard rock gigs. Yeah. You were straight in there. All we needed was a studded wristband and a mullet, and you're well away.
Yeah, I think the gigs were probably because either Steve or our friend Doug probably bought the tickets and said, "Here you go, you're coming to Portsmouth Guildhall or something." But yeah, so I know nothing. I've never listened to Slayer, and I've never listened to a thrash metal album. I would think I don't know if I could name you another thrash metal band, to be perfectly frank. So this is new territory. Well, I could name you a band I know is metal, whether they're a thrash or not. I have no idea. That's the thing.
Astonishing.
So this is a whole new thing for me. I can't say it was particularly enjoyable for a lot of it. I've listened to the album 5 times now, and I haven't made it all the way through without stopping and having a little little palate cleanser in between, a bit of Peter, Paul and Mary or something before going back. However, having said that, I've found it really, really interesting. And actually intriguing and rewarding in some places. I had a moment. I at first listen, I got to about track 3 and thought I might have to just give up on this because I just can't handle this anymore. And then I had a sort of realization that I think I was listening to it in the wrong way. I was coming to it in the way that I sort of remembered Iron Maiden or Def Leppard, when actually I think this is probably nearer late 80s and early 90s hip hop. What I mean by that is that the music is not searching for melody, and it's delivering this message. And if you took away the guitars and put turntables in and change the subject matter, this is probably more NWA than it is Iron Maiden. And so this was a real moment of like, all right, I'm not listening to this in the right way. And when I did, I didn't want to ignore the music, so I took some of the tracks and put them through one of those apps that separates out the vocals and the and the music, sort of inadvertently created my own sort of Slayer karaoke tracks that I now can enjoy at home. And I thought, on the one hand, the music was very, very, very impressive, just technically. I mean, unless it was all put together with Pro Tools or the like, the way that the guitars and the drums and the bass just stay in lockstep on this very driving, often sort of, fast music. But on the other hand, it was incredibly uniform, with one or two exceptions. It mostly sounded in the same key. And for a lot of the tracks, I think you could have probably just interchanged the backing and no one would really notice. But those were to my ears anyway, which may be non-metal ears. Lyrically, I thought it had highs and lows. I thought it could clunk, particularly when it just went down to "I hate you, I want to rock to rip your head off." But particularly in the religious stuff, there were enough moments of lyrical sort of power where I'd go, "Oh, crikey!" And I guess that's what they were trying to achieve. That sort of very visceral and an actual reaction. And so by the end of it, I don't think I'd massively want to listen to it for fun. I was really pleased that I've been introduced to it. And yeah, got lots of other things to say, but I'll just leave it at that, I think.
Very interesting indeed. Steve Webster, give us a little bit of your context with, because you come from a bit of a hard rock background.
I do, yeah. I mean, I suppose I was part of the split where, all the friends that you had as in your early teens went off in one direction or the other. And I kind of stayed with the eyeliner and the swagger whilst everyone else went off with the denim cut-offs and the patches. And so I never really got thrash to any huge degree, although I would kind of try and dip in and out of it and when I could. I think probably my favorite thrash moment would be Bring the Noise with Anthrax. Up until this point, I think that would be that, because obviously it was nicely softened as a crossover and whatever. But it was never a huge thing for me. I properly listened to Rain in Blood fairly recently to put this into context, and I think probably the first thing to say is you can see the difference between a great album that has made people stand up and take notice and go, "Oh my, this is something. This really is something different. This is something that can carry people away." And then to hear people doing the same things like a decade and a half later, it seemed a real shame that people were kind of still doing the same thing. So I listened to this 3 times.
A second. Hang on. You thought it was a shame that there was still a band like Slayer. You listened to Rain in Blood, then you listened to this and thought, is it a shame that they're doing? What did you expect Slayer to?
Well, no. All right, let me put it a slightly different way. From such an auspicious start.
Had you followed? Sorry, I don't mean to heckle you. I'm
that's
genuinely interested in your journey. So obviously, Rain in Blood was immediately when it came out was one of those kind of instant classic records. It was received as such. It had such a bone dry production, right? There was no reverb. It was Rick Rubin. It was super dry and just so muscular. It was just fucking those. It was like this thing that was So obviously this was like 15 years later or something. So had you followed their trajectory since then, or were you just thinking? Did you think this? That's quite interesting. So what were you anticipating? They might sound like?
I didn't really have any preconceptions, but I probably expected it to feel for me to think that it still was. It was still virile. It was still, it had the power to shock and to grab me and shake me and think and feel, wow, this is something new and different. And actually, it's really hitting me hard in the, in some part of my body, because I can put myself as a 15, 16-year-old listening to Rain in Blood and think about the kind of musical landscape of that time and go, this is just so different. And this is although thrash had obviously been around for a while as I suppose a kind of underground movement, but as a huge landmark album, I think I just thought that 15 years on there would still have the power to shake and to really get me excited, and nothing could be further from the truth in terms of how I felt listening to. I listened to this 3 times. Once sat down looking at the lyrics, and that I found so hard. to do. So the other two times I just kind of had it on, not looking at what the track listing was, just kind of listening to it, almost just letting it be there whilst I was driving or doing the washing up or whatever else it was I might be doing. You're just doing kind of mundane things really. And yeah, it's not for me. It's really, really, really not for me. And I can touch on some of that as we go around. But I'm interested in where from obviously because we do have some thrashers or ex-thrashers in the room, but people talk about the big four all the time. Now, was Slayer always seen as fourth
Yeah.
in that?
Well, no, there's a, as you can imagine, there was quite a lot of debate about that.
Mm,
Thinking a lot of people that Slayer are the only band when I was going to see a lot of thrash, and in the interval between bands, they'd often put Rain in Blood on, and that's the only album I've seen people just headbanging all the way through the interval and not
mm.
going to get a drink but staying in to listen to it and stuff like that. That's the
Right.
only album, only genre, anything I've seen a fan base do that. So for me, I mean, you could argue Metallica sold out. Anthrax are always a bit cartoony. So for me, I was a Slayer when I'd always put them first for me personally.
I think Steve. I think the thing about Slayer that people respect them so much, respect them so much, is that they've maintained their purity throughout. They've never deviated at all. Do you know what I mean? They haven't done
Mm,
power ballads. They haven't done this. They haven't expanded their sound. They've just stayed the same. But the only ones that are even slightly different are this one and Music Killer Sin Dab, and the one Steve was talking about with the weird
mm.
bloke on the front with the hood on.
So
When they got a bit new metally, a little
mm.
bit new metal. This
Well,
one's a little bit
I
new
was
metal.
sensing little bits of that in this, and there were some nods to the sounds that were coming out of metal generally and rock generally in the late 90s and early 2000s, and I kind of I picked that out. But my argument is completely it's the same as me saying I expect the 10th Motorhead album to be better than the first Motorhead album, or the 15th AC/DC album to be better than the first AC/DC album. It's you're not expecting that growth, I guess, which
AC/DC
is
is a
a
good
fair comment.
comparison, actually. AC/DC is a good sort of comparison, really.
Hmm.
Honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think, Steve. I think we've all, in our own different ways, hit upon the thing, which is Slayer do one thing and they do it really well. They do it really efficiently. It's like talking about a car, but it is like a car. It's like a machine, isn't it? There's no emotion really, other than, well, emotion. It ends up being emotional, but it's such a specific purist thing they do that you either hook into that and you go with it. Yeah, they do one very very specific thing, and either you hear it and you go, oh fuck, it's like one of those things. Slayer, you know, I remember the first time I ever heard Slayer was like, because back in the sort of mid 80s, when me and my friend Paul, who Steve also knows, we were kind of metalers, we like Priest and Maiden, all this sort of stuff. I was going a bit glammy, a bit High Rocks, that sort of thing. We both like Kiss, and we were reading in Kerrang about this thrash metal stuff, right? So we were like, right, what do we? So let's sort of try and let's maybe do this together. So there are these bands, right? Venom. We heard of Venom, and then there's Slayer. So I decided I'd buy a Venom album at War with Satan. And Paul Bavister, he bought Hell Awaits. And so we both bought them. We both sort of brought them around to his house. We put them on, and Venom was just laughably shit. Even then, it was just bad. It was just biscuit tins, just awful. No palm muting. Just really, it was energetic and fun, but it was silly. It was risible. And then I remember it's one of the, have these musical moments in your youth that just were very profound. He put Hello Eights on, which is their second album, and halfway through it suddenly drops. It suddenly goes into that bam 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 bam, and it was genuinely frightening. I was like 15. I must have been 15. Quite well. I was quite new. Well, I knew this, and I spat and smoked and swore, and it was all like, yeah, no, about the way. But it was this other place. It was this new, weird, frightening darkness. I was like, it was genuinely, oh God, don't like it, don't like it, don't like it, don't like it. No, 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 no. And of course, Paul went on to, like you, Steve, went on. That was like, fucking hell, this is what I want from metal. This is like metal, but all the fucking heavy, fucking mean, fucking shit, all of that. And it's just fucking coming at you all the time. And I was like, oh no, no. And I ran away into, oh no, I'm going into like Hello Rocks and Dogs D'Amour, and all the nicey stuff. I want choruses and guitar solos and stuff. And that was what it is. And they've stayed true to that. And that's why people love them so much, because they've never done a power ballad. They've never been MTV. They've just, all their albums are just like these riffs, man, and it's like, to me, and it sounds pretentious, but Slayer are one of those bands that a couple of times a year you put a Slayer album on and it just does the thing you need it to do, you know, like I don't know, like Ascension by Joel Contrail. Some albums that just, they have that thing, you can't over listen to them, but just sometimes you're in that mood and that just delivers that thing. I think everybody apart from you, Steve, and this isn't a judgment call, but is hooked into that in some way or other. It's like, if you think, you listen to it and think, okay, well, it all sounds, you can listen to it passively, right, and think, well, this is just annoying, and it's always in the same key, and he's just shouting one note. You know, it is we'll talk about this, we'll come into this, but you've just got to get into it, because it's fierce, it's raging, it's this raging, broiling darkness, you know, and it's not like other music, you know, it doesn't try and have hooks. It's just like, we're all fucking pissed off, we're all just, and it's this bang 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 the whole time. And it's admirable, you know, this dark energy.
Okay, I have to ask a question there. Is it though? Can people maintain that anger for 15 years and really kind of, you know, is there that much to be genuinely angry about that? And I can't pick out what the anger is in this. I can't, you know, if we take this piece of work and whatever the context, whatever the time it may have come out, you know, yeah, it's nihilistic and you know, it's got lots of hatred and lots of anger there, but it doesn't really seem to be aimed at anything in particular. I mean, I think more kind of rather than Satan is good, which maybe was the original story, it's much more God is bad, but it seems kind of I don't know, it feels anti-American to me almost, which, you know, anti the American way of life.
That's a good question, because actually this album specifically, Kerry King wrote most of the lyrics. They went out of their way, because their previous albums were mostly occult based lyrically, religion, occult, death, murder, the sort of cliched themes of what you'd imagine this music would deal with. But they sort of thought, okay, well, we're coming up to the 21st century, let's try. And so they attempted to, well, so I've read, they attempted to sort of use more contemporary, like more day-to-day themes, like basically hating people and wanting to beat people up and fuck you and I hate you, and it's a lot of the, I've never heard such swearing in an album ever. Even on previous albums. Did anyone else notice that?
It goes back to Ross's kind of hip hop point, and it's kind of, you know,
that's true.
It does feel, yeah, it really does feel like that.
No other Slayer albums are like this. Steve, you know the Slayer discography better than me. I can't.
I would say there's more pointed swearing. There's more like South of Heaven's got some genuinely brilliant sweary horrible phrases on it, but they don't it doesn't say the F word as much as on this album that I've heard. Yeah, but it seems a bit it's kind of more pointless swearing on this one, whereas when they've sworn in the past, it's been, you know, in a phrase where you think you've to come up with something that disgusting and horrible, you've thought about that, you know, rather than just putting fucking every other word or whatever. But I agree with you. I've not heard. I think it's the sweariest Slayer album.
It's unbelievable. It's Anyway,
I just assumed everything was like that. So that's really interesting.
No, not at all. No, okay. and also Ross, on this album, he sings pretty much just one note the entire way through. It's really, really genuinely remarkable. It's absolutely foul mouthed. It's like what? It's like someone trying to get into your car. Yeah. It's like a road rage bloke, like all the way through. And because I thought maybe it's just me, so after this, I've listened to it like 4 or 5 times, and I went back and listened to Rain in Blood, Hell Awaits, and you know, and there's a lot more melody. It's certainly in the vocals. I mean, the rest, you know, are pretty much for muchness, but this is quite unique.
I think you've hit the nail on the head when they tried to do a bit more. Weren't bands a bit like that at the time? I mean, I'm not a rock aficionado of that time, but it seemed to be that would tie into trying to be a bit new metal and a bit rappy and a bit, you know.
Is this, and this may sound as stupid as it comes out of my mouth, is this the same period as like Rage Against the Machine was, and that kind of new metal and
a little bit later, Steve, a little bit later.
This Rage was a bit earlier.
Yeah. Rage was early. This was later.
Yes.
This is sort of post. This is post new metal. Really. This is post Slipknot.
So it's picking up some of those.
Yeah.
I like picking up some of those things. Yeah. I mean, it felt to me like just like a toddler with Tourette's a lot of the time, which it did turn me off, and I'm not a prude, but it did kind of
I completely
make
agree
me
with
wonder
you.
what the point to a lot of it was.
I agree with you. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think lyrically, it's just a huge over reliance on the F word throughout. Anyway, Marcus, well, let's go to. This feels like, of all the records we've covered, this feels like the most pointless one to do sort of highlights, favorite track, because it's like it starts and it's like
not written in that way,
and then it ends. Yeah.
The question is like, how far through do you get till you think, do you know what? I'll stop there for now.
Well, yeah, I mean that's God. There's quite a lot to say here, isn't there? Part of the point of the album is not to be variable. It's to have 42 minutes of intensity without any let up, and that's so that the word album implies a collection of stuff, something, a photograph album or an album of songs, whereas this is just a collection of sound that comes together that's meant to be, I think, broadly similar, and it gives it this relentlessness, this lack of let up. And I was the same as Ross, actually. I had to break it up because it was just, I was about four songs in. I said it's getting challenging now. It was testing me. But that's sort of in a way what it's meant to do. I think is push you to the limits of your listening, and then sort of if it's actually scaring you away, it's maybe a degree of success of the music.
Marcus, may I ask you something? Last time, you rather shockingly, when we were doing the Alice Cooper episode on the last one, you rather shockingly admitted that you only usually listen to these albums once.
Yeah.
And we were all kind of like, aghast. So how many have you listened? How many times have you listened to this one?
I have listened twice actually, and so I feel I have more round. I took your comments on board, Seb. I'm not a complete bigot on these things, and yeah, this definitely was worth a second listen. But it's also because it's intimidating the second time round, isn't it? It was intimidating enough when I didn't know what the content was, and that message repeats itself. But I think there's a couple of things here which I'd want to draw attention to rather than track by track. The opening track, Darkness of Christ, I think is really quite special because they take a thrash metal song and they kind of trash it with the sound effects, but in a really good way. So the bottom end's been taken out. There's some kind of swirling around the speakers which is happening, which makes you sort of turn your head around. And as a consequence, it's probably unplayable live to come over in the same way. It's a creation in its own right. So you're thinking, God, if I was thinking like something's gone wrong with the recording, or my Spotify's not working, but that's how it's meant to be. And then you get this switch over to the next song, Disciple, where it's the full, if you like, conventional production, which then it's like a film going from black and white into color, and you suddenly go, whoa! You've got the first one was weird enough. Now you've got all this power and the bass coming in, and it's really strong. And that juxtaposition I thought was inspired, but the kind of bravery to put sonic effects, which almost ruins a creation for them in the first song, and one with pretty.
I agree. I think it's
I mean, the whole thing. It's like, wow! I can't think of another example where someone's dared to do that to a song, or pretty much.
What I love about that is that swirling with that female voice and the kind of, it's like cut up collagey thing, and it's swirling around. But you just know, you're just waiting for it to go. You're just thinking, oh, this is good, man, because it's going to go bang. And when it does, it's like.
But the bang is not like you get a bass drop in dance music and stuff like that. It's not done. The drop is actually track 2. It's not part of track 1. So but it's like a split second. The drop, it just happens to be track 2, but it's essentially one continuous music. It just goes like that. Yeah, you got it. So that's a highlight for me. I thought Bloodline was really good. It's got this huge sound that just kind of spreads across the room. That one, it was a slower song, and it had that. Maybe that was a bit of listening to new metal or something was going on there. Those sort of Soundgarden-y type guitars and things. Maybe, I mean, Slayer.
Did you see the video to that, Marcus? That was the only one of these tracks that they made a video for.
Interesting. So that was a sort of single, was it?
Yeah.
Grammy nominated. Don't forget.
No, that wasn't the song that was Grammy nominated. It was Disciple that was Grammy nominated.
Okay.
Oh, right. Okay.
Anyway, but it's quite funny. It's quite a funny video. But
I mean,
anyway,
the other thing, it was also a bit like the last three tracks. They had a very different sound, not very different, a slightly different sound to the rest of the album. To even like Warzone, it sounded like it had come from a different recording session and who had been stitched into the album. I don't know if that was the case or not, but that was a different feel. It was still obviously Slayer, but it felt different from the kind of concrete blunderbuss that the rest of the album was.
all right. Concrete blunderbuss. I like
Yeah,
that.
that's a bit of a mix of metaphors there, but I think you know what I'm.
I like it. No, I like it. I like that.
I suppose there's a couple of more things before we sort of move on. One, I sort of was thinking of that back to my movie metaphor. It reminded me somehow of the movie Eraserhead, the David Lynch movie. I think it was pretty much his debut. Not from look and feel or emotions that it brought forward, but Eraserhead is a disturbing, uncomfortable watch that is brilliant. And as a consequence, you sort of feel, I'm glad I've seen that, but I'm not sure I want to stick it on again. And I felt quite similar with this as well. Like I'm really glad I've been through it, but it's not going to be a regular spinner on my turntable. The other thing that crossed my mind, and I think it was echoing a point that Webster made, which is the level of anger that's coming out musically and lyrically in this. These are men in their, what are they? Probably in their 40s, maybe
Late 30s, I think.
Yeah, okay. What do they do for a day off? Do they play with their kids? Do they throw a stick for their dog?
Yes,
do they have a laugh at Laurel and Hardy? I mean, it's sort of if they don't, they're just going to be like the most bitter people, and they really need to do something about it. They need to go be political activists or something and have an outlet for this rather than just saying all humanity is shit, because it's just.
Did you hear about how they set up the studio? Did you ever read about how they set up the studio to record this? They went to this. They were supposed to record it in California, but they found a cheaper studio in Vancouver, Bryan Adams' studio, and they went there and they sort of like they just put hardcore porn all over the walls, and these two big banners with fucking these fucking fingers out like this, and just like it was just classic skulls on this, dark candles, just like a kind of like a sort of 13-year-old's bedroom. It was like, right, now we're ready to go. Do you know what I mean? Okay, we've walked the dog, we've put up the fingers, we've got hardcore porn. Okay, right. E?
Yeah.
Another E?
Yeah.
Yeah. Steve Gibson, do you want to talk about your further thoughts on it?
I mean, I've carrying on the lyrical theme a bit. One of the great things about Rain in Blood is the lyrics are so sort of cartoonish in a way. And the lyrics here aren't cartoonish, and I had a bit of a different reaction, probably because being an old Slayer fan, think, oh, here we go again. I had the lyrics up on Spotify as I was listening to it, and it was just stuff like, I've got that, the Bible in the pool of blood, so I don't have to listen to its lies. Like, well, why is it in a pool of blood? Just don't read it. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, but whereas Rain in Blood's lyrics are kind of cartoonish ridiculous, this was just, I think they're just trying too hard. And none of it really worked for me. The other thing is, it's 20 minutes too long. The ideal Slayer length of an album is Rain in Blood, about just over 20 minutes. That's perfect. Anything after that, my interest is fizzled out. I've heard it, blah, blah, blah. The drummer, it was the drummer's last. I was reading it's the drummer's last album because he got an elbow injury, and they got Dave Lombardo back. And but he seems. The thing is, I love Dave Lombardo. Every drummer loves Dave Lombardo and I think you've been saying about a one-trick pony thing, and you were saying something, and it's so true because I saw Dave Lombardo with John Zorn in an improvised music thing at the Barbican, and he was shockingly bad. It was dreadful. It was he can't do anything else but the Slayer thing, and I've got a sneaking suspicion that the guitarist and everybody else can just do the Slayer thing. That's what they do. And I don't even, it's actually worth, as a little side note, it's actually worth, have you seen Dave Lombardo's drum clinic, his rant about when he left Slayer and the money and everything, what happened with the money?
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Anyway, that's well worth, I'll post the link up for those who haven't seen it, because it's well worth the watch. Little insight, little look behind the curtain at the anger. But
can I just ask you, because to a lot of Slayer fans, it's not Slayer unless Lombardo's playing drums, right? And Paul Bostaph, right? I'd never heard any Paul Bostaph albums. I just heard that he's shit competitive, but I thought he was absolutely fantastic on this. I thought the drumming.
Well, one thing is he does that, and there's many there's many. You can tell it's not Lombardo. And the thing that makes me laugh a little bit about this album is there's a couple of moments. I think it's on New Faith, and there's another bit where there's a breakdown, and it's almost playing a funk beat, and you can kind of tell he wants to, but it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It grinds against everything, and then it's like, no, come on, 1, 2, 3, 4, back into the rest of it. But what I do like about and what they should be commended for, and again, I don't know what they've done recently. I don't know whether they fall into the trap of all metal being sort of quantized and basically a lot of it's triggered now in the studio. The drummers don't actually play anymore because it's just take, it's just easier to trigger it all. That's why it all sounds so boring and shit now. But Slayer never used to, and I don't think they've done it on this one. There's still quite a lot of groove in a lot of these songs.
This was live drums. They recorded all the drums first.
Really, there's a lot of groove on this album, as there is on Rain in Blood. In fact, on all their albums, there's a lot of groove on it, which is just missing now from a lot of stuff. Even the thrash now, the black metal now, whatever, that's all gone. So they should be commended for that. But my main overriding thing is it's just 20 minutes too long. It's nice to hear some Slayer again, but
I think you're right. I think that's one of the reasons Rain in Blood is still such a classic, because it comes in at under half an hour, which is just like it's perfect.
That's what you need. It's perfect. Everything's it's the extreme, and that's all you need. That's it, and it's all just a brilliant package. But this, I mean, there's no kind of been on Rain in Blood even. I'm thinking about it now, and there's just standout riffs and standout songs. But this is just so one dimensional. And lyrically, I say I think they're just trying too hard to be nasty, and there's so much negativity that it kind of the joke was over by track 4. I was just thinking, oh, you hate everyone, you want to kill everyone, you're going to smash this guy's head in. And I was just thinking, yeah, it's this over soon, So
weirdly, it's weirdly one-dimensional, is it? Lyrically,
yeah.
So trying to be cool.
Which is quite bad. Even there wasn't, and I thought there'd be more. Not that I particularly enjoyed Slayer solos, because again, they are a bit one-dimensional. But there didn't seem to be many there were fewer solos than I expected on this album. Guitar solos, I mean. So.
Well, that's something I wanted to talk about, actually. Ross,
I'll move on. I'll let a guitarist speak about that. But that seemed to like. But if you listen to Rain in Blood and South of Heaven, and even the earlier albums suffer from sort of production if you listen these days now. But when there's no guitar solo, they're backed up with these monster riffs, really grooving, brilliant heavy riffs, and that's again a bit lost. There's not the writing isn't there. The guitar writing isn't really there on this album for me. But it was nice to hear some Slayer again. So thank you, Marcus. But it's not made me think. I want to know what's happened since South of Heaven till then, or what they've done since. To be honest with you, and I think that interestingly, but the last time we saw them, the 7, we left early because sleep blew them off the stage, in our opinion, and it was a bit. And unfortunately, Hanneman had died, didn't he? So they got the other guitarist on,
Gary Holt,
Exodus guy, and it was a bit the stage because back in the day they would just come on, they wouldn't even look at each other, and it was just so perfect. But now it's a bit more like watching the Quo or something, and sort of being a bit chummy in that,
We saw him with Hanneman at Brixton. Academy, was it?
Yeah.
I have to say, I was telling Marcus about this the other day without talking about the album. Just that it's the worst vibe ever at a gig. A Slayer audience, a Moteg audience is a bit surly, a bit fucking just bored middle-aged men like this. But a Slayer gig is like really. The audience, this music kind of gets the audience it deserves. You go to a Slayer gig, there's a really bad vibe everywhere. Really negative, bad, horrible. Everyone's angry, everyone's fucking aggressive. It's just, you get what you asked for. It's quite fun in a way.
Although at that Brixton gig, there was a girl headbanging in front of me, and she turned around and said, "I hope my hair isn't bothering you. Is it hitting you in the face at all? Do you mind if I carry on?" And I sort of thought, "Oh, that was
hello." It was a girl.
Sorry. Yes, it was a girl. I remember she's with her boyfriend. There's nothing like that. You lot. It was nothing like that. But I just thought, oh, that's nice. But anyway.
On that happy, positive note.
Yes,
Ross. Ross, as a guitar player, Slayer are. I don't know if you probably don't know this, but Slayer are kind of famous. Really, one of the things Slayer are famous for is their kind of atonal guitar solos, because usually with Metallica, Anthrax, in fact, pretty much all other bands, the guitar solos are in a particular key, right? So pretty much, I mean, all Slayer songs are in a minor key, right? So you'd expect the natural minor key, the harmonic minor. You'd expect a variety of minor scales, but Slayer notoriously don't do that. When Slayer solos come in, they are absolute pure chaos, just absolutely, and they get a lot of shit for it, right? Because a lot of people think it's like the Shags, right? It's almost like they can't play guitar, so what they've done is like, right, let's go for another one, and will that do? But I've got my own opinion on this. But Ross, what did you think of the guitar solos? Because they're not like other bands' guitar solos.
Well, I had written down about the guitar solos, and that is really fascinating. And I sort of wish I'd known that, because I think the first one comes on Disciple, second track, and it sounded to me like they cut the track when the guitarist wasn't there, and come in and said, "You got out a solo." And he goes, "But I haven't heard the song," and they're like, "Well, just go and do something." And that's what it sounded like to me. That it was just plucked from somewhere else. I think if I'd known that that's their MO, then I might have listened to it slightly differently. But I was quite down on the guitar solos, I must say.
Yeah, because you got Hanneman on the left, you've got Kerry King on the right, so you're just getting used to the O tonality on the left, and then you've got another 4 bars on the right. It's like, oh no.
Yeah,
but because that's what they've always done it, and it's a thing.
Right, I get you. I think most people have covered stuff I was wanting to say, but I think that I was really fascinated by the first track, as you say, and I think the drop is the last line when and he goes and it builds up to "and God hates us all," and I thought, oh, this is going to be really interesting. But then Disciple starts, and I was then struggling, and it reminded me at the beginning of the Alice Cooper album Dada, where the sort of like the first track came on, and I thought this was really interesting, and then it went downhill from there. And I was worried I was going to be the bloke you get on this occasionally to say, like the first track, rest was bollocks. So I was glad that there was something else in it. I thought I'd written for Bloodline a tune, finally a tune, and I thought that actually if the only track I can say I actually found myself enjoying. And I was listening to it on the train yesterday on the way home from work, and I actually sort of find myself nodding along to Bloodline. I think Steve Gibson's absolutely right. It's about 20 minutes too long. I thought Payback was the worst on there, which was just violent, with no point. I was quite like the fact that the early tracks were trying to say something about something. I mean, I was going to be critical of it for being not massively a greatly nuanced discussion of religion and society, but it's a 2.5 minute song. I mean, I don't know what I'd really expect, but the fact that it was trying to do more than just "I want to rip your head off," and I thought that's where I got something from, and so I think I like the visceralness of it, but I do have a question for you metalheads. To me, it did sound all the same. The more you listen to metal, do you actually start hearing more in that sort of and there are actually melodies there that I might be missing?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Like anything. The more you listen to something, the more you get out of it. It's like a girl at work. First day at work, nothing. But after about 6 months, you're completely obsessed with it. So I hear.
That's it. It's just the way that they suddenly in that track Bloodline suddenly developed a tune that I was just it was just so stark against the rest of it, which was quite interchangeable. Like they can do that, and they can be violent, and they can be angry, but with a sort of like almost a little melody in the voice, which was quite nice. And so I was trying to work out, is basically the other stuff just what they're doing, and this was them trying to just perk things up a bit, or actually am I just missing that there is stuff like that going on throughout the album, and it just doesn't sound like it to me.
You need to hear Rain in Blood, Ross. You need to hear Rain in Blood, I think.
Yeah. Ross, I think, no, you should. I don't think you should, quite frankly, from what you're saying. But the early stuff is a lot more. There's a lot more melody. There's a lot more dynamics. There's a lot more happening in this. It sounds. I mean, on the surface, it sounds like just another Slayer album. They all sound like this, right? They all sound exactly like this, but deep listening is much more rewarded. On Hello 8, for example, like there's a song called Necrophiliac, and it swings and it does all these things. On the song Hello 8, there's the key changes, and it's a lot more musical. So it's sort of it's more nuanced, I suppose. But okay. I suppose we've listened to those more. I don't know. I said, but I suspect. I think there is something very, very one-dimensional about this album, lyrically, vocally, musically. You know, it's like a train.
And do you enjoy it? I mean, do you enjoy those guitar solos, or do you appreciate?
I absolutely love them. For me, I think they play them note for note live. So they're not. When I first saw Slayer live, I was like, oh, here we go. This good bit, but they're absolutely. And I think it's brilliant what they do because as a guitar teacher, you know, I teach like scales and guitar a lot of the time, and to me they're fascinating. It's kind of because they're just like, what the fuck? How did they come up with that? I'm more interested in their kind of composition. Are they randomly just going like fucking whammy whammy wah wah pedal, or are they thinking, well, a bit of mixed lid in here, I'll go into a bit of major, or are they just? So I'm interested in the kind of in the actual thought that goes into the makeup of those scales. But I think they work brilliantly because they're just like these weird atonal Schoenberg bombs that go off in the middle of songs, and it does literally sound like they stop the tape and then suddenly it goes wow 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 wow, these dive bomby fucking chaos. And it's just I just think it's for me it's sort of like again this kind of this dark negativity, this kind of awful black energy thing. The solos manifest that. The solos that aren't here's a scale. It's going to finish on a fifth. It's going to do this. It's going to do this. They're just it's yet more chaos. You know, it's like a pterodactyl attack in stereo.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, after I've finished the therapy I've just booked in from listening to this album 5 times, I will go back and I will actually have another listen with that in mind.
Oh, they're really fun. They're just really fun, and it's for me. And I'm getting pretentious again. They're kind of almost expressionistic guitar solos. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, Webster, Webster, who struggled to get it tonight anyway, who hated this album, who's been sitting here for an hour waiting to say something else about.
I mean, I think the thing to take away is, I absolutely get the, you know, as a big, unrelenting slab of darkness and violence and whatever. I can't say anything against that, and that's what it set out to do. And absolutely, that's, you know, it's hit that as a standalone piece of work. I just look at it and go, what are you angry about? And with this much anger, shouldn't there be more? You know, shouldn't there be more narrative behind it? Please, you know, because this anger directed in the right way could solve the world's problems, you know, if that's what you're angry about. But if it's just anger,
can I come in here? I think what it's doing, it's not trying to solve the world's problems. It's like these are the problems of the world. It's saying there's this awful black vein in humanity, and we're kind of hooked into that. And isn't this fucking awful? And how do we feel about this? And it's a sort of it's a question. They're not. I don't think they're trying to transcend it. It's just like, this is as shit as it can be, and fucking. I think it's hard for everybody.
So they're reveling in it then, rather than
surrendering to the darkness, perhaps not reveling. I don't think it's an easy thing. It doesn't feel like it's an easy thing. It doesn't feel like it's a kind of let's kind of like, you know. It feels to me like a kind of like a. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, for me, the anger against. And it seems very much an anger that's directed against Christianity, and that feels ultimately pointless. You know, I mean, it's you know, Ricky Gervais is doing £1 million contract Netflix shows, but based on the same sort of thing, and they're, you know, probably equally irritating. It's not doing anything. I think for the amount of power that's there, I just feel very empty at the end of it, and I'm not frightened by it. I'm not kind of, oh God, it's too sweary, or it's too dark, or it's too whatever. I just kind of find that there's no substance beneath it, and I suppose, you know, if you're not looking for substance, great. If you're just looking for a 20-minute shot in the brain, shot in the arm, then absolutely it'll do the job. But I agree with what a couple of other people have said. You know, if it was just 20 minutes, then it would be all the better for it.
The irony, of course, I knew someone was going to mention that. Well, it's me, of course. That Tom Araya is notoriously a practicing Christian, which always struck me as very, very strange, considering all the sort of stuff he sings about. But I guess he always says, "Well, I don't write the lyrics." I don't know, but it is curious.
That is interesting, but you know, actually, well, if he's at least committed, then, you know, he's perhaps someone that can show these things up to people and say, well, you know, I actually live this stuff, so I'm allowed to say it, rather
possibly,
rather than just shit. Yeah,
I'm sure he has to justify it to himself somehow. Okay, right. Let's do scores. So let's go. All right. So out of 100, let me just get a clean bit of paper. Where did we start with? We started with Marcus. Ratings up.
59.
A quick summing up. We're going longer than usual, which is good. But so Marcus, summing up, marks up 100, please.
A surprisingly satisfying listen that does exactly what it promised on the tin. 59 out of 100.
Gibson.
20 minutes too long, but classic return to form probably. Solid slab of Slayer. I think some of the comments I didn't expect quite as an in-depth discussion about a Slayer album because it's only a bit of Slayer, isn't it? After all, so I'd say 67 from me.
Ross.
An intriguing introduction to this type of music, and it will make me listen to any thrash I stumble upon in a slightly different way. And so that was a very, very good thing to do. I can't say I massively enjoyed the experience all the time, but it did have an effect on me. So 55.
This is going to be high on our list, man. This is going to be high. Webster. Oh, hang on.
Yeah, I think you can see where this is going. Hated it. Shouty sixth form bollocks that really should be better than it is. You want to make a nihilistic album, then please go ahead, but put some thought into the lyrics, put some thought into your audience. It's a 17 for me.
17. And I thought it was a good Slayer album. 62. Right, I'll do the maths while it's Steve Gibson. It's your turn to choose next week's album. Can you tell us what you're choosing?
Yes,
and I'll do the maths here.
I've taken a leaf out of Webster's book for my next choice, and as I'm speaking, I'm getting angry because this ticks all my hatred boxes. It's a mainstream darling of the mainstream pop press who decided to do a rock album, and all of a sudden, which is firstly a tick in my angry box, and then the second tick is all his fans and said media go on about, well, now he's done it. This is rock. This is everything rock fans have been listening to. So that's nonsense. So I'm on the verge of changing my mind because it fucking winds me up no end. But it's Grinder Man, and not just Grinder Man, but Grinder Man 2. The Grinder Man 1 was obviously so good that he made another one. So to follow on from Tin Machine 2, I want to hear Grinder Man 2. Well, I don't want to hear it. It's going to be a nightmare, but there we are.
Okay, well, that's very interesting because if anyone is Nick Cave, did you mention Nick Cave? Yeah, it's a Nick Cave record.
No, it's Grinder Man. It's Grinder Man.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay.
Is that the artist formerly known as Nick Cave?
Okay. So, right. So Grinder Man was Nick Cave with a band that's not the Bad Seeds, right?
It is. The Grinder Man is basically the Bad Seeds as well. Apparently, I didn't know that till I read about it. So.
Okay. Is anyone? Ross, you strike me as the person who's most likely familiar with
I've seen Grinder Man live.
Okay.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it was a fantastic gig.
Ross, you're not You're not meant to say anything.
So I won't be here.
Ross is not on the next one.
He might be.
He's not. The next guest is already lined up.
Well, okay. Well done, Ross. Well. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Very good choice. Anyone else? Let's have hands. Anyone a fan of Nick Cave here? That's been interesting. Okay. No, me neither. Can I just so Slayer got God Hates Us All got a mean score of 52 out of 100, which puts it third after
really.
Yeah, amazingly. So I'll just read down the list if that's okay. So number one remains Thunderbox, 72.5. Drama by Yes, 61. Slayer, God Hates Us All comes in number 3, 52. And then there's a bit of a drop after that to Tin Machine 2, number 4 with 39. Then Saved, 35.2. So that's the top 5. So top 5: Humble Pie, Yes, Slayer, Tin Machine, Bob Dylan.
What a festival that would be.
So that's it. Yeah. Thanks everybody. Thanks guys. That was really fun. More fun than I
Yes.
thought it would be.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ross. Thanks again, Ross, for
Thanks, Ross. Thank you.
for joining us as a guest. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Marcus.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Steve Webster.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve Gibson.
Thank you very much.
And thanks everyone for listening. So please can sort of thing you normally say these things. Please can people like and subscribe, and because we haven't got any subscribers, we're on YouTube now. We're on YouTube. We're on all the kind of podcasting platforms. We're on YouTube. We're on Apple Music. We're on Spotify. All that sort of stuff. So we haven't really done
a
anything.
Patreon page.
Have we got a Patreon page?
I don't know. Have we got one? A pay what you can afford site.
We should start doing this. I think we've done a few. We've done enough of these now to sort of start.
People really want extra content.
We should do a Patreon. You know, like Slayer albums. There, like people want shorter Slayer albums. We should have a Patreon with a kind of shorter.
Yeah, it's like the Reader's Digest version of our podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah, 10-minute bullet points, and then
exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, people could listen to the aborted recordings, which are still hidden away in a vault, where whole podcast guests are silent for their commentary on particular albums.
Yeah, some of you actually wanted to put that up, didn't you?
Yeah, sort of our own artistic endeavour. Anyway, on that bombshell.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. That's it for tonight, and we'll see you next time for a bit of Grinder Man. Thanks, everybody.
See you soon. Bye.